Okay, hello again in another exciting tutorial about 3D shoot 'em up with Unity and Playmaker with me, Romi Fauzi. And I think this is the 10th episode. Last time we have discussed how to create enemy lives. So enemy has a life, and we can use different ammo to hit them with different damage power. And now in this episode, I'm going to show you how to create an enemy boss. So we are going to create a boss fight like the one in Skyforce, and let's do that. Okay, so first I'm going to disable the enemy group so we don't have enemies spawning, so we can focus on our boss fight. And I'm going to go to our model folders, and we have this Astra Starship package, and under prefabs I think we have this one, this heavy cruiser. This is like cruiser, this is a shuttle. Okay, this heavy cruiser, because the size is quite big, so I'm going to drag this to our scene. And now it's too small. Yep, so move this out of the way, and then I'm going to scale this around 18 on the Y, X, and Y and Z, so it scales nice. And let's rotate the Y-axis to 180 degree, so it turn backward, facing to our ship. Okay, and then let's create a new empty game object, and this is our parent. So this is Astra boss 01, and then I'm going to reset the value to 000, and then I'm going to make Astra heavy cruiser as the child of Astra boss 01, and reset the Z value to 0, and we are going to move the Astra boss to here around 20 on the Z axis. Okay, so now we are going to set up the basic component for this boss. So we are going to add a box collider, and then we are going to scale the X-axis, also the Y-axis, and also the Z-axis, so it scale nicely with our ship here. And then we are going to add we are going to make sure its trigger is checked, and we are going to add another box slider, and we are going to scale on the X-axis, so the size is around same with the wing. I think the wing part of our boss model here. Scale the Y-axis and also the Z-axis, and make sure its trigger is also checked. Okay, so I think that should be okay. And the next, I'm going to add a empty, and then I'm going to enable the icon here, maybe using the contrast color yellow icon. And for this icon, I'm going to put this in on the side of the ship here, and I'm going to rename this shoot point. I think this is R, and we are going to duplicate this, and this is shoot point L. So this object is basically the point for shooting laser. So for the boss enemy to shoot laser, it will start from this point here. I'm going to move the Z-axis, slide to the back. Okay, so now make sure the X-axis is -4, and on the R on the right side of the shoot point, and for the left part we make sure it's +4. Okay, so now we need to create the animation. Okay, let's reset this to 0, and let's create an animation. So I'm going to choose the Astra bus, not the child object but the parent object, and let's create the animation. So go to our animation folders and let's create a new clip, Astra boss movement, and then let's start to animate it. So I'm going to turn down the samples to 30 the frame per second, and then I'm going to move this to the left side of the screen first, so around 2 seconds. I'm going to move this to the left side of the screen here, so not too far, maybe around 18 on the x-axis, so it's still on our screen. Or let's change this to 20, so we have a nice movement to the left side of the screen. And then we are going to hold its position maybe around half second, so around 15 frames, or let's make it longer, around 1 second, so it will hold the position for 1 second. And then we are going to move this from the 3rd second to our 5th second, and on the 5th second let's move this to a 0 on the x-axis but with a positive value on the z-axis, maybe around 11 or around 10. Let's see on the screen. I think that should be working. Okay, so now we have a slide. Let's copy the last keyframe on the 5th second and paste this on the 6th second, so it holds the position. And on the 8th second we are going to move this ship to a 0 on the z-axis but minus 18 on the x-axis, so it will move. It will form a movement, like a triangle movement. Yeah, and let's copy this last keyframe here and paste it on the 9th second, and we are going to copy the first keyframe and we are going to paste this to 11 seconds, so we have a looping movement. And okay, that should be okay. Yep, so we have a. Now we are going to create an event, so this animation will send an event to our FSM. So whenever the boss ship stop here around the second 2 second and 3 second, and also 5 second and 6 second here, this area part and also this area, the enemy will start shooting. So let's create a event here, also an animation event here, by clicking this some sort of chapter thingy here, and on the 8th second also, and we can set this to a function. So now we need to create a shooting FSM first, so let's do that. There is a limitation though. The animation event will only recognize the first FSM, only one FSM, so we can only assign this to a global event in an FSM, and it has to be only one FSM and the first one. So the trick is we can use multiple FSM on this object still, but we need to create the first one. For example, in this tutorial, the shooting FSM, and then we assign that send event to our animation event here, and after that if we add another FSM, this will be still working, but we cannot change the value on the function on the animation event, so we cannot edit the animation event, so it will not recognize more than two FSM, sorry, more than one FSM. Okay, let's add an FSM. So I'm going to disable our record button here on the animation, and I'm going to go to our Playmaker window, right click, add FSM, and we are going to create a shooting event. So create shooting, and make sure this is a broadcasting event, and I'm going to add a state here. So here we are going to rename this shooting, and we are going to add a global transition of shooting. And now if we go back to our animation window, we can send an event here. As you can see, we can send event, and we just type our global event shooting here. So I'm going to just copy the string parameter, and for the another event I'm going to send event also here, enter, and the last one I'm going to set this also to send event also shooting. So now if we test this, let's add a finish transition, and I'm going to add a wait transition, wait action, and set this maybe to around half second, and send to finish. When it's finished, go back to the first state. Now if we try this, let's play this scene here. It will go to shooting and go back to the state first, and it will go back to shooting and go to the state. So whenever it accesses this state, it will start shooting. So now we can see that our animation event is working. We are going to leave the animation, the movement animation like this, and this is already this is done. Okay, next I'm going to create a new hit animation. So I'm going to go to our animation, and I'm going to give this name Astrobus hit. So this is for when our bullets or our ammo hits this ship. So let's animate this, and I'm going to add a rotation, maybe on the first second. We are going to rotate this to a value of like this, so we can see it's like getting hit like this. And then we need to copy the first keyframe and paste this on the 2-second timeline here, or make it on the one. I think I'm going to change this. Okay, it should be okay. So we have two animation, the movement and the hit animation. Now we need to set up our animator. So okay, first we need to create an empty state, and I'm going to set this as a default state here, and I'm going to make a transition from our empty state to our Astrobus movement, and this movement will get triggered by a parameter. So I'm going to create a trigger parameter and call this one start move, and under the transition here from new state to Astrobus movement, add a condition and choose the start move. And then we are going to copy the Astrobus hit, and I'm going to create a new layer. So let's create a new layer, and this is for the additive animation. And let's paste this Astrobus hit and create also an empty state. Set this empty state as a layer default state. Make transition from new state to Astrobus hit, and from Astrobus hit back to new state. So we have a back and forth transition here. For the additive animation, set the weight to 1, and the blending to additive. And now we are going to create a new trigger called hit, and when the condition is met, hit, it will transition from the empty state to our boss hit, and we are going to leave the transition back using the exit time. So it will transition when the animation, the hit animation is finished. It will go back to our empty state here. So we are going to trigger this layer animation, this additive animation, when the player is shooting and our laser hits the enemy ship. Just delete this one. Okay, now I think that should be okay. Okay, so stop the animation. Now let's see. Okay, now we need to create the enabler for our boss. So I'm going to create a new empty game object, and this is the boss enabler. Set this transform to 0, 0, 0, and we are going to set the Astro Boss to the child of this object. And we are going to add a small box collider with a is trigger option here, and then we are going to move all the boss enabler back to out of frame here, maybe around this area, and then we can go to our enemy group, and this is quite easy. We can copy our FSM, so just copy this component and paste this onto our boss enabler, and we have an FSM over here. But we can delete all of this here below, and I'm going to delete all the the variable that we don't use anymore. So remove this. We are going to trigger, and then we are going to create a new state here, wait state. So go to wait here, and let's add a wait action. Sorry, not wait action, wait, and maybe set this first to 10 seconds, and if it's done, go to finish. So we are going to add a finish transition to the set parent here, and we are going to delete the transition. So here it will, this object will be set as a child to our enemy enabler here under the world moving system and under our camera. Sorry, where is it? This one, this enemy trigger. So the boss enabler will become this child, this object child over here. So it will follow the screen, and then we are wait here, and here we are going to set the trigger. So let's set trigger, the animator trigger, and specify game object. Just drag the child object, this Astro Boss 01 here, and we are going to trigger the start move trigger. So make sure S is capital S, M capital M, because this is what I have typed on the animator. If you have if you choose another name on these parameters, then you can type that exact string that you have set in your animator. But we need also to activate, so we are going to activate game object, and then we are going to activate our Astro Boss here. So we are going to disable this. At first we are going to disable the object, but later we are going to animate this to activate this, and then after activated we are going to enable the set parent. Or I don't think we need to activate. I'm going just to disable this for a while, because our the animation, the Astro Bros animation is not going to move. It will stay until we trigger the movement, and once it's moved, then it will shot bullets. So we don't need to worry that the Astro Bros movement will be already moving when it's outside of the screen. So let's save the scene and let's try this. Okay, so I'm moving here. Oh, okay, the Astro Bus is already moving, but I think 10 seconds is too long here. Let's see. Okay, make this 5 seconds. So when it's get triggered by the enemy spawner. Okay, enemy spawner, yes, this is correct. Send event to start, and we are storing the parent to our parent, and we are going to wait for 5 seconds, and then we are going to set this after 5 seconds. So the enemy is already maybe already in the middle, then it will parent the all of the boss enabler here to our enemy trigger, and then it will trigger the start. So save the scene, and let's try this again. Doesn't get trigger. Sorry, let's see this. Oh, okay, there's one problem I forgot. We need to add a rigid body because our enemy trigger doesn't have a rigid body, and our boss enabler also does not have a rigid body. So we need to add a rigid body, and maybe use kinematic, disable use gravity, so it will not have a dynamics dynamics behavior on this rigid body. We are going to use this rigid body only for collision detection or trigger detection. So save this scene again. Trigger event and collision event needs a rigid body in order to work. So there, as you can see, it's working, and 5 seconds is too long, so it start moving on this side of the screen. So okay, let's make this faster, maybe around 2.5 seconds. So we need to try and error that value here. Okay, now we have a boss movement there. Okay, so I think that will be all for this episode. We have a working boss movement, and on the next episode we are going to make the boss to be able shooting and also able to take damage. So thanks for watching. I hope you like this episode, and if you like, please subscribe, and there will be a lot more tutorials coming. And really appreciate any donation. If you could make donation, it will help me to create better content more often, and most important, ads free. So thanks for watching. I see you on the next episode. Bye.